We're here with all of you this evening to hold a public hearing related to the One Bay Area Plan. It's important for all of us in the room who care deeply about our county and our future to have an opportunity to speak and to share your thoughts and concerns with us as we go forward with our planning process. The Plan Bay Area process includes local officials like ourselves in each of the communities of the 9 Bay Area counties. The idea that we have in Marin County is that our interests are unique to our county, as is the case, I think, in each of the counties within the region served by MTC and ABAG. Ideally, we will see homegrown priorities that emerge from Marin County reflected in the plan that is adopted. Tonight, however, is our opportunity to hear from as many of you who wish to speak to the draft Plan Bay Area, which is out for public review and comment at this time. The Plan Bay Area offers a long-range plan that has a vision for the future of the Bay Area. It respects diversity. It is intended to capture what is unique and wonderful about our region. The dialogue that has led us to this evening, we know, has at times, even in this room, been somewhat tumultuous and uncomfortable, but it's an important conversation for us to have, and we're really welcome all of you and appreciate you being here tonight. Because this is a formal process and a formal hearing, we have 2 court reporters here who will capture your remarks as they're made to make sure that each of the comments is included within the One Bay Area plan. So there may be a time when you will be asked to clarify or to confirm some language in order for us to be able to have a good record. The way that this will work is if you wish to speak, you'll fill out a blue card, which we have here, and you will be given 3 minutes to speak. This hearing runs until 9 p.m. this evening. So if we get a number of more cards from speakers who arrive somewhat later in the evening, as the evening goes on, by 8:30, we will count the number of cards remaining, and if we feel the need to, we will reduce the amount of time per speaker at that point to allow for the maximum number of folks to be able to make their comments. You're also going to be able to make written comments as well. And if you have a card and you filled it out and you want to just pass it to the sides, we will have staff from MTC and ABAG available to take those cards and bring them forward. So at any point in the course of the evening, you're going to be able to pass your cards our way. Also, I think it's important to make clear that the purpose of this evening's public hearing is to receive comments. At the same time, we do know that many of you may have questions about the process or questions about the plan itself. And you're also welcome to fill out cards with your question, and those will be responded to as well as presented in the packet to each of us in our regional agencies as these plans are brought forward to us. We will not be in a position to answer questions during this hearing this evening. Its purpose is to receive comments on the plan. At this time, I'd like to give Mayor Pat Eklund the opportunity to make a few introductory remarks and then begin the public hearing. At the end of the evening, there will be an opportunity for Supervisor Rice, Mayor Eklund, and myself to make some closing comments. So thank you again for being with us. Mayor Eklund.
Thank you very much. And before I do my introductory comments, I'd like to introduce Supervisor Rice, who does have some opening comments.
Just very quickly, so I'm Katie Rice. I represent District 2 on the Marin County Board of Supervisors, and then I'm sitting here tonight as the county's representative on the Association of Bay Area Governments. I took over this seat in January. Susan Adams served on ABAG for the prior 9 years, 10 years. So I want to say welcome to all of you who came out tonight and who have been following this process and this plan. I think that, I know tomorrow at our board meeting where the county's being recognized for, Marin County's being recognized for having the highest voter turnout in the state of California in November 2012, and I think that the level of participation we're seeing here tonight reflects that same active citizenry. So I appreciate everyone taking their time. And as Supervisor Kinsey said, this is a formal public hearing to take and receive comments, but it's also an opportunity for us as representatives on these regional boards to listen and hear what the folks in Marin have to say. So thank you for coming.
My name is Pat Eklund, and I'm mayor of the city of Novato. And first of all, I wanted to welcome you all here tonight. The Plan Bay Area and the draft EIR are huge documents, and there's a lot of information in there, and it's not easy to digest. But we really want to thank you very much for taking the time to really review that, because the Plan Bay Area and the EIR have tremendous impact across the Bay Area. This is our third public meeting in Marin County, and the primary purpose, as Supervisor Kinsey just commented, is to get your comments on the Plan Bay Area, which is scenario number 2 that was identified in the draft EIR. We're really interested in hearing your comments on the proposed plan, the entire thing, or even pieces of it, the specific policies that you especially like or don't like. This summer, the Board of Directors for the Metropolitan Transportation Commission and the Association of Bay Area Governments will be taking action on the final environmental impact report, which will include a response to comments. We also will be selecting an alternative that was studied in the draft EIR, or possibly even modifying the preferred alternative, the Plan Bay Area, to include suggestions that you may be raising tonight or throughout the public comment period on May 16th. It's important to note that this is really a work in progress, and that every 4 years we're going to be revisiting the Plan Bay Area, and we're going to be looking at the new priorities, the new resources, the new approaches, and see if there needs to be some modifications. Also, I did want to comment that MTC and ABAG are both public agencies, and they're subject to the Brown Act. So any policies that would be implemented as part of this Plan Bay Area or environmental impact report will be placed on their agenda, and you are encouraged to follow that and to comment on it as it goes through the process over the next 4 years. Our goal is really to preserve what we love about the Bay Area, and especially Marin, and to continue tackling our challenges to maintain our roads and to address our traffic congestion and to preserve our open space and to plan for housing, jobs, and public transit. All of the comments that we hear tonight and those that we've heard from previous meetings and from the online comment forum and the telephone survey will be shared with the Board of Directors for both MTC and ABAG. And as I mentioned, it's anticipated that the final EIR, along with the response for comments, will be on our agenda for June, and the final plan will be on our agenda for action in July. Really encourage you, feel free to come to both of those meetings, which will be noticed well in advance. You can view the draft plan, if you haven't already, online. You can also view the environmental impact report, the draft, even though it is quite large and may take a while to download, having been almost 1,500 pages. And you can comment online as well, and you just have to go to the website called www.onebayarea.org. And as been mentioned all along, the public comment period closes on May 16th at 4 p.m. Your comments have to be delivered to MTC or ABAG by 4 p.m. on May 16th. So with that then, I would like to instruct our court reporters, as Cindy and Amber to our left, that the public hearing is now underway. And I'm going to ask our first speaker to begin. And our speakers need to go to the microphone, which is set up just above the first level there. And make sure that you identify your name and also your city where you live. And our first speaker, and we're taking the cards in the order that we received them, is Elizabeth Moody. So Elizabeth, if you could please come to the microphone, and then Steve will be calling the next person who should be getting in line. And be sure to mention your name and your city.
Elizabeth Moody from Mill Valley. In our Marin County, with 60% of our workers living in other counties having longest auto commutes in the Bay Area and building up greenhouse gases with their travel, I strongly support the One Bay Area plan. It is essential to integrate housing growth and transportation planning, along with improving our air and protecting our environment. Sustainability gives equal attention to the 3 E's: environment, economy, and equity for workers and their families. Essential in our general and local welfare. We must meet overlapping regional challenges that One Bay Area plan does, while in each of our cities and unincorporated county areas we do maintain full local control in land use decisions. The 9 Bay Area counties bring extensive overlap in economic development, employment, services, air quality, recreation, and more. Reducing auto and truck travel is essential to our present and future. A 2010 chart shows that low-wage personal service jobs have skyrocketed over the last 2 decades. Workers who commute to jobs in our county, along with many teachers, healthcare, and other essential workers. While Marin County population grew less than 5% from 1995 to 2005, total vehicle miles traveled in Marin increased 25%. Diane Steinhauser, Transportation Authority of Marin, reports that the traffic on the Richmond Bridge increased 5-fold between 1995 and 2005. The average wage at the Marin-based job in 2008 was $37,000 a year, while median income in single-family households in Marin was said to be $67,750. We need to be regionally involved and integrate planning in order to eliminate disparities and improve both our environment and family living. By laying out the Bay Area's first ever sustainable strategy, One Bay Area plan is meeting those regional challenges and still maintaining local control in our land use decisions. Counties must work together on all issues that affect us and overlap: our economic development, climate change, sea level rise, natural disasters, affordable housing, and family jobs and transportation. There are many critical components that must be integrated in successful planning for all of our 9 counties. I strongly support this effort along with other members of Middle Valley Affordable Housing Committee that I chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Moody. Please.
Hi, I'm Andrew Allen. I live in unincorporated Mill Valley, actually Tamalpais Valley. I've lived there for 54 years. I've watched traffic get worse and worse. I'm sure the people who want this new Bay Area plan have warm feelings in their heart that they think they're doing the right thing, but I don't think so. I think growth needs to slow down. We had moratoriums on water hookups 30 years ago. We haven't come up with any more water storage facilities. We're talking about desalination. We certainly don't need that. I think when an area has reached maximum saturations where you have traffic jams in the morning, traffic jams in the evening, worse traffic jams on the weekends, and then summer weekends are almost impossible to get in and out of Tam Valley. I think that we don't need to put a whole bunch of people in little boxes and get a warm fuzzy feeling that we've done the right thing. I think if we're going to make giant changes in plans, that we better think long and hard about it before we do something that we can't reverse. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'll yield any leftover time to Ronnie, the next person speaking. Thank you.
We don't do that, but thank you. All right.
Ronnie?
Yes, hi, I'm Ronnie Tessier. I am a resident of Tamalpais Valley. I'll be short and succinct. There are a lot of people that want to have their voices heard tonight. But I urge you to remove Tamalmonte from the Highway 101 corridor priority development of the Bay Area. mandating development as planned will cause irrevocable damage to the environment, and it will also subject the most vulnerable of our citizens to extreme environmental impacts, such as sea level rise, water deficit, toxic air contaminants, unacceptable traffic congestion. Again, please, I really urge you to remove Tamalmonte from the Highway 101 corridor. Priority development of the Bay Area. Thank you much.
Be sure to identify your name and your city, please.
Yeah, Craig Thomas Yates, City of Santa Fe. I believe that the TODs that can be developed for this development should be 100% accessible, and the fact is also the wetlands should be taken into consideration for the conditions that are expressed in the draft EIR. And thank you.
Okay, well, good evening, Board of Supervisors. My name is Jesse Shepard. I am a resident of Santa Rosa, and I'm here affiliated with Transportation Equity with Marin Grassroots. And I'm here actually tonight because I support the EEJ, that's the Environment Equity and Jobs Initiative, because compared to other services, it pretty much invests an additional $8 billion in increased transit service, which would be tailored to fit our more equitable housing distribution plan. One of the things that concerns me is that I've been a public transit user for my entire life. I grew up in Marin, lived in Strawberry for the first 20 years of my life. And the problem is we don't have adequate public transportation serviced by Marin Transit, serviced by Golden Gate Transit. At night, we have pedestrians that can't get to and from the canal, who have service jobs at Larkspur Landing, who have to walk under dangerous walkways. And we have people that can't get home. I know personally, I've had to spend probably hundreds, maybe as much as maybe $1,000 in the last 2 or 3 years just on cab fare to get home because, well, there were not public transit routes running at 11 o'clock, maybe 10:30, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night that were adequate. And it's really important for somebody like me because I'm legally blind in one eye, so I depend on accurate, solid, firm public transit. And I feel that we need more of that in Marin County. So if that means that Marin Transit has to help get more funding for that, then we need to work on that. And that's hopefully what I hope that you guys will take into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Erica, followed by Kathy Cortez.
My name is Erica Erickson. I live in Summerville, and I am affiliated with Marin Grassroots. I'm also a county planning commissioner. I would like to ask everybody that's here to support the equity environmental job scenario of the Plan Bay area to please raise their hands. Basically, for the ones that don't know, the environmental jobs, environmental environmental job scenario was proposed by a network of public health, affordable housing, and others grassroots groups back in 2011 when this Plan Bay area was being proposed. And basically, this scenario was considered the environmentally superior scenario from all the scenarios proposed during this process. And basically, by adopting the strongest aspects of this equity environmental job scenario in the final Plan Bay area, it would support transit operating budgets increase by about 5%, as we heard from Jesse, it's very needed, and also have more incentives for affordable housing. As we know, we have a great need for affordable housing and diversity of options of housing in Marin and the Bay Area, and that would support, this option would support that. So, but my biggest concern in terms of the equity environmental job scenario in the Plan Bay Area, and I want to urge you to, and all the decision makers to support this scenario and the aspect of it is regarding climate change. We know that this scenario will result in the greatest reduction of total greenhouse gas emissions That's the primary goal of Senate Bill 375. We'll create the strongest shift from cars to transit, walking, biking, and other alternative means of transportation. We'll keep 100% of the new development within the current urban footprint and allocate 12 fewer residents living in homes that will be at risk of flooding from expected sea level rise by 2050. I know that a lot of people in Marin County and we are all concerned about sea level rising. So that option of the plan will be the best for to address sea level rising. The 30,000 fewer residents will be subject to sea level flooding by 2050 if we adopt that option. So I want to urge all the decision makers to really consider the strongest aspect of this scenario in the final Plan B area. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Kathy Cortez, please come forward and state your name and your city for me. After Kathy is Lois Riddick.
My name is Kathy Cortez. I'm a member of Marin Action Coalition for Equity and the National Low Income Housing Coalition. I'm from Tiburon, California, and I support equity, environment, and jobs. Marin County needs affordable housing. There's been opponents of the regional housing needs allocations and the population growth predictions that say the numbers are too high. But even as it stands today, the need for affordable housing is very real. One indicator that's reflective of that need is the fact that there are nearly 8,000 households on the Housing Choice Voucher Section 8 waiting list. That list has been closed since October of 2008, and even then it was only open for a 1-week period of time. Marin needs affordable housing with or without population growth. The need is very real as it stands today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lois Riddick, and then Linda Raines, please.
Good evening. My name is Lois Riddick, and I live in Marin City, a Marin City resident, of course, and I've been advocating for Marin City as well as throughout the county. And my concern is that I do support the equity, environment, and job scenario. It invests an additional $8 billion in increased transit service. And why transit service is so important to me personally and to many people that make contact with me by email or in person, I find that there are hillsides that are not accessible through the transit services. And I've been going to meetings, I've been writing letters, and been advocating as a part of the Housing and Transportation Committee, also serving as a commissioner on the Division on Aging. And so it's important that we look at the bigger picture. And I depend totally on transportation. I am disabled and I am a senior, so I am coming from 2 points. I want you to consider that there is, as that you see this commercial on TV, less and more. We need more transportation for seniors. We need this transportation because it allows the seniors across the county that are lonely to get more involved. There are seniors that are still volunteering. There are seniors that are getting older, perhaps would like to stop driving, but if we don't have the services accessible to those seniors, they will not be able to have their lives fulfilled in the way that is needed. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Linda Raines will be followed by Margaret Zegard.
Good evening, I'm Linda Raines, and I'm actually here to comment on the draft DIR. It is full of inaccuracies and inadequacies. The most striking thing about it, however, is the total disregard for the residents of Marin now and those to come. One document, this document has no problem building on floodplains, and there are no answers or mitigation for that. It has no problem with the lack of water. The only mitigation for that is conservation, something Marin County is very good at already. In fact, we're famous for it. The police, fire, and schools that will have to be built, they will have to be built, but they don't give you any idea how that will happen, who's going to pay for it, things like that. These are just a couple of examples of a failed document, which also makes false predictions of population growth and employment opportunities in the future. In addition, there is no distinction between planned and potential development areas. They should clearly be spelled out in the plan. Thank you.
Will be Lawrence Kaplan.
Hello, don't worry, Supervisor. I'm the only one talking, but they will come up here. I want you to take a good look at your neighbor. My name is Lilo. I've been living in Novato for 25 years.
My name is Yuvan Pham. I have been living in San Rafael for 42 years.
My name is Lovely, and I live in San Rafael for 35 years.
I'm living in Marine City for 16 years.
My name is Todd Dung. I stayed in Novato 20 years.
My name is Dina Duong. We've been in Novato 25 years.
My name is Liu Fon. I've been here for 34 years.
My name is Long Ten. I live here 10 years.
So take a good look at your neighbor. Many years back, we political refugee from Vietnam. I don't know you remember the 75 year when the war ended, we rushed over here. So we are given the opportunity to have a place to live, a place to work, and a place to raise our family. So many years after that, today we hear in the ABAC come up with a plan that we totally support that, because that's the plan that we would like to pass on those opportunities to our next generation, to our fellow citizens who are struggling to have affordable housing in Marin County, live and work in Marin County. And after all, fair housing and affordable housing is a human rights issue. Thank you for your attention.
Lawrence Kaplan.
Hello, my name is Lawrence Kaplan. I live in Tamalpais Valley, which at the moment sits within the Highway 101 corridor priority development area. As I'm sure you're aware, there's a mounting firestorm of community opposition to this situation. And for good and powerful reasons, I ask that you consider and act on the following two requests. First, please consult with all of the Marin County Board of Supervisors and become advocates for the removal of Tam Valley and Almonte from the Highway 101 corridor PDA. It makes no sense to increase density in a semi-rural neighborhood that suffers regularly from terrible traffic and flooding. If you cause even more traffic to sit in gridlock at and near Tam Junction, you will ironically increase greenhouse gases, which would be directly contrary to the meaning, spirit, and intent of current laws. Moreover, if indeed high-density housing is encouraged and allowed in Tam Valley, and if this decision is based, even in part, on faulty population and bootstrapping job projections, then most certainly ABAG and MTC will suffer the indignity and embarrassment of failing to listen to and understand local concerns which are well-founded and quite serious. Second, in light of the intensity and breadth of opposition and concern in Marin County, I ask that you extend by 3 months the time for comments by affected parties. Given the length and complexity of this plan, and the fact that we are talking about the extraordinary notion of making plans for the next 25 years, a relatively brief extension of time would allow for broad consensus building and the opportunity for many more in the county to be heard. These two accommodations could profoundly improve the quality of decision-making and the fairness of the process for which ABAG and MTC hold so much responsibility. Thank you for your wise consideration.
My name is Luke Tessier. I'm a resident of Tam Valley. I'm concerned about the environment, the community, the place we live. I have small children. I'm concerned about water, the quality of life, the quality of air, and the quality of living. I feel that equity, environment, jobs, schools, housing, and a clean, safe place to live for everyone is extremely important. Which is why I urge you urgently to remove us, Marin County, from Plan Bay Area. I urge you to remove us from the priority development area. I urge you to forbid ABAG and MTC to exert control in our community. I would like to remind you to say it plainly, I am opposed to Plan Bay Area. However, if you insist, I support the no action plan. Let us have local control over our community. We've done a pretty good job in our communities for the last 50 to 100 years of planning what needs to be done, which is why people want to live here. Let us have that local control. Now, I've heard advocates say, let's have ABAG because there will be all this money. Where does the money come from? Comes from us. What happens? The money goes to a big organization over there. They take their cut. They have their offices. They have their bureaucracy. They have their big show and tell sessions. Has anybody ever seen a Jimmy Stewart movie, a Western, where the big fancy suits from New York come in and Jimmy Stewart sits there and says, now just wait a minute, I know that's not right. Every single time I have a meeting that involves ABAG, I have the same sense. Supervisor Kinsey, during the Citizen Marin meeting, I noticed that you showed up in time for the news cameras, sided with the folks in favor of Plan Bay Area, and then removed yourself before the discussion happened inside. I submit that this is extremely problematic for two different reasons. The first one is, it appears to the casual observer that you have already made a decision, regardless of community input. Secondly, sir, I submit that by refusing, after you were invited cordially and multiple times by multiple people, to enter and remain in the meeting, I submit, sir, that you have had many opportunities to receive local community input and were simply not interested.
Luke, that completes your 3 minutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And then following Peter is Linda Pfeiffer.
Peter Hensel from Corte Madera. I'm very interested in water, where the water for 2.1 million new residents by 2040 is going to come from. I think there's a serious disconnect between Plan Bay Area and water supply, and it troubles me greatly because in 2001, Governor Gray Davis signed a couple of bills, SB 610 and SB 221. They were companion bills. They require that big developers submit a water supply assessment plan before going forward. Now, there is a threshold of 500 units below which you don't have to submit a water supply assessment plan, but considering the fact that Plan Bay Area is, I think it's planning for 600,000, let me wait a minute here, 634,000 housing units by 2035. I mean, that's an incredible amount. That is 1,268 times 500. So I would say that Plan Bay Area is not exempt from submitting a water supply assessment plan. It is just absolutely not reasonable, considering the fact that in California we are fighting over water all the time. Now, climate change is a reality. We all know that. Even the most diverse oppositional foes here agree on climate change. But along with climate change, there comes a variability in weather. I mean, some places have superstorms, other places have droughts. It's getting very difficult to forecast the weather. And this makes it also very more problematical when you start planning for so many people. I recently read something that the farmers in the Central Valley this year will be getting 20% of their contract water supply on account of the low snowpack in the Sierras. I think in the 3 months from January to March, we got 52% of what we normally get. I mean, this is very serious stuff. And so there is a saying in the water industry, it's kind of an ironic saying. They use this term paper water. What it means is water that is planned for, that may belong to somebody else in the system, or that may be coming, according to future planning, some hoops that people are going to jump through.
Peter Hensel, I'm sorry, but your 3 minutes are up. Thank you very much. If you can submit written comments by May 16th, that would be
Okay, but
wonderful.
one thing I want to say is that we shouldn't be banking on paper water.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Linda Pfeiffer. And then following Linda is Angela Gott.
Hello, my name is Linda Pfeiffer. I'm on the Sausalito City Council. And I'd like to comment on the draft EIR and the process, which I consider flawed for community outreach. Plan Bay Area represents the single largest plan for high-density development perhaps in the history of Marin, and yet most residents know nothing about it. The lack of transparency for Plan Bay Area has, in my opinion, been pretty abysmal. Many questions exist regarding high-density development plans in so many gray areas that I'm not sure whether to call this Plan Bay Area or Plan Gray Area. Gray areas exist regarding sufficient water supply, the lack of a water assessment plan, endangered threatened species habitat, air quality, and traffic congestion. California Code of Regulations, Title 14, Section 15065A1, states that a project will have a significant effect on the environment if it substantially reduces the number or restricts the range of an endangered, rare, or threatened species. One priority development area borders the Golden Gate National Recreation Area in the middle of the Pacific Flyway with hundreds of migratory bird species, home to 38 rare or special status plant species, 9 federally endangered, 1 federally threatened, 13 federal species of concerns. It's the home of the endangered mission blue butterfly and California red-legged frog. Other PDAs are in environmentally sensitive areas prone to rising sea levels, in the middle of fragile marsh and wetlands ecosystems, or landfill. I have 3 core requests. Please delay the May deadline for the public comment on the draft EIR. Please explore other options beyond high-density development to reduce CO2 carbon, such as telecommuting. Please, ABAG, provide resources at the local individual city level to hold public hearings in individual cities to fully inform the residents who still really know nothing about this high-density plans. Because the people of Marin deserve transparency, not planned gray area. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Angela Gott. I'm 62. That makes me a senior. I've lived in Marin since 1989 and Santa Fe since 1995. I'm considered high risk for homelessness. I fall in the extremely low income category, and I'm very concerned about, is there any place for me in this new plan? We need senior subsidized housing. I probably will live into my mid-80s. And when I turn 70, I'm only going to get $1,184 in Social Security. All the wait lists are currently closed. They've been closed. The average wait is 10 years. I really need senior subsidized housing to be planned as part of this plan, and on good public transit, so that I don't have to continue to try to drive my 1985 Toyota Tercel I'd like to retire it, and I'd like to retire myself. If I had subsidized housing, I could get by on the $1,184 that I'll get when I'm 70. At 62, I only get $640 a month. So that's why I have to wait until I'm 70 to collect that. So I'm a real face in this county, been living here since 1989. I don't want to move, I don't want to be pushed out. But we need senior subsidized housing to be part of this planning. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Barry Toronto. And after Barry is James Bennett.
Good evening, Barry Toronto from San Rafael. I think my first suggestion is that ABAG and MTC need to prepare a sheet that says what Plan Bay area is and is not, because there seems to be a lot of rumors about what it entails and what it does not entail. I went to the meeting last week at the Supervisors Chambers, and I discovered that there's a lot of misconceptions about what this plan covers. It does not talk about affordable housing. It does not talk about the type of housing that should be built. It talks about the number of units that have to be built around transit corridors, if I'm not mistaken. Unfortunately, the misinformation out there is creating a lot of problems, a lot of dissension. And I ask you to straighten out this by actually doing an is and is not sheet to help correct these discrepancies. I think this whole process is great to help Marinites decide whether we want to include the workers who work in this county to actually live in this county. And I think this is a message to the supervisors to actually get together with all the city council members of all the cities and decide where we're going to put the affordable housing, the market rate housing, so that we can get the traffic off of the freeway. And also, the problem is our transportation decisions are not decided by our politicians. They're decided by that Golden Gate Transit Board. That is, most of them do not live in this county and do not know what it's like to travel through this county. And I think it creates a problem. And I think MTC and ABAG have to realize to tie these housing goals with giving us transportation dollars is a mistake. Because we need to improve our public transit system in this county to allow people to actually afford to live here and also to be able to travel without having to use their cars every day. And so I urge you to go back to ABAG and MTC to say that we're a different county. We have too many environmental restraints to have too much dense housing in Marin County. And it's not so much where we can grow. There are certain places we can grow, but we have to sit down together and decide where it can happen, rather than put it in places where that could be flooded in 20 to 30 years. And I would appreciate if you listen to these environmental concerns, and otherwise you just giving developers a chance to get rich quick, leave, and then have people have to find new places to live when their place gets flooded. Thank you.
Thank you. James Bennett, followed by Bob Stevens.
My name is James Bennett. I'm a property owner, a business owner, and as of the last 8 years here, I find myself being a prolific activist. This isn't about affordable housing or social equity. This is about good old-fashioned oppression with all of its earmarks. UN globalists that are behind this plan, and we can connect the dots. Come see us afterwards. We're glad to do it. If you're an oppressor, you don't want the people spread out across the landscape of abundant means with gardens, driving around with freedom of transportation. That's like herding cats. You want them contained where they can be surveilled and controlled. This plan will, as designed, thoroughly crash the economy of the Bay Area and molest the property rights of all of its occupants. All will be caught in this oppressive web of manipulation, one way or another. After 8 years here, after studying Agenda 21 for 8 years, I'm starting to learn how it works. Aside from employing a Soviet model of governance, which includes regionalism and the empowerment of unelected boards and commissions, through permeating our government and manipulation of our currency, they provide for our impoverishment. And this little MO works on a serf, it works on a dairyman out by Inverness, it works on Petaluma, and it works on Portugal. It goes like this. Once they are out of options and dependent and out of choices, globalists and their change agents like you come along to our cities or to the country or to the dairyman or to the town and say, if you do things our way, we'll give you money. Next thing you know, a lovely country like Portugal's got some Goldman Sachs socialists running their country. We want our sovereignty. We want our property rights. This isn't a left or right thing. This is a freedom thing. I'm not a Democrat or a Republican. I believe in the most divine, admired societal framework ever conceived, called the Constitution. The free market are unalienable rights which are not to be granted by or reconciled through you, and set the free market free. It has a cycle. It's like the jungle, but it's kind of rough, but it works. It falls into decline. Somebody speculates, creates opportunity, and it works. Remember?
Followed by Alan Berlin.
My name is Bob Stevens. I live in San Rafael. Recently, Dick Spotswood wrote an article in the IJ, and I'd like to just quote a little bit from him. Why have Marin supervisors taken no meaningful steps to curb the dictates of Bay Area regional agencies pushing arbitrary housing mandates? It's becoming clear from their collective inaction that the supervisors quietly support MTC, ABAG, HUD, and other alphabet agencies in their effort to destroy local control of land use planning. Despite uttering sympathetic platitudes, it's more about their personal ideology than constituent representation. With the proposed density of housing units up to 44 dwellings per acre, as I've read, it's no matter, it's no wonder that the people are getting more frustrated with their elected officials, with questions about the height of the new buildings, the increase in water consumption, the impact on schools, the obvious increase in traffic, and the questioning increase of job opportunities and population jobs. This is no time to make hasty decisions. Do not rush to judgment. What is agreed to today means we will be living with the results for years to come. A 6-month extension of the planned Bay Area comment period is only reasonable. Do it once and do it right.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stevens. Alan Berlin, and followed by Robert Bundy.
I'm Alan Berlin, and I live in Kentfield. Since I haven't had the opportunity to review the Bay Area plan or the draft EIR, I think it would be prudent for me to reserve my comments, and I can be most effective when I will respond in writing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Berlin. Appreciate that.
Robert Bundy?
Bob Bundy, Corte Madera. I'm on the Corte Madera Flood Board, and we've spent a lot of time locally dealing with our infrastructure and the ability to be more resilient and withstand flooding, heavy rainfall, and high tides. One of the concerns that I've got is that the plan doesn't really take into consideration sea level rise. And while I applaud the goals of trying to reduce CO2, because that's what's driving climate change and sea level rise, we really need to look at how this is going to impact some of these development areas and some of the infrastructure as far as the roads and transportation. The development is going to have to be hardened or protected in a way to prevent sea level rise from impacting it, and also to not create an island where the highways or transportation corridors are not going to allow anybody to get to those islands. FEMA is about to come out with new flood maps, and even FEMA is not really taking into consideration sea level rise in its full extent. So I think that I know it's being thought about in relationship to the plan, but I think it really needs to be addressed to a much greater extent to really look at what the total cost of some of these would be and whether some of the locations for priority development really make sense. Thank you.
Thank you. Liz Beck, followed by Joe Famali.
Excuse me, could you call more people at one time?
Excuse me, Liz is about ready to speak. Go ahead, Liz. Thank you.
Good idea.
It does take a while to get here. I'm Liz Speck. I've lived in Mill Valley for 37 years. 23 years ago, I co-founded a nonprofit, El Porvenir, which works with people in Nicaragua to put in clean water projects. It's the water that I'm concerned about. Even now, MMWD is asking us to conserve. If there are thousands and thousands more people living in our county, we're really going to have to think, where does the water come from to give everybody who's thirsty a drink of cold water? We're going to have the problem that Nicaragua has. And if you're thinking that desal is the answer, think again, because that would be counterproductive. Greenhouse gases are what we're trying to diminish by this plan. But what's going to happen if there's a desal plant? It's going to add even more greenhouse gases to our air, and all of us are going to be enclosed in an even hotter bubble than we are now.
Thank you. So Joe Famali and John Palmer, we'll add some more names. Susan Kirsch behind that, and Guy Meyer. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Joe Famali. I live in San Rafael. I've been living in Marin County for 30 years. And I really know very little about this plan and the pros and cons related to it. By my observation, a lot of taxpayer money has been spent on the development of the plan, on staff, consultants, brochures, all storyboards out there. And I have a question if this is the best use of taxpayer money in a very, very hard economic time. I also need to understand the relationship between jobs and housing that is being assumed, and if there's any real support for these assumptions. It appears that there may be some of these key assumptions that support the building of additional high-density housing in Marin. Other than West Marin, this county is fairly densely populated. I don't see this county needing any additional high-density housing. Thank you.
Great. John Palmer, Susan Kirsch, Guy Meyer, and then Richard Hall.
Yes, hi, John Palmer from Mill Valley. A couple of things. First of all, I agree with the speaker who came and said this is happening way too quickly. I'm not going to repeat what he said. I'm just going to say he's absolutely right. This is happening way too quickly. Not enough people are aware of it. Not enough people are aware of the implications of it. We really need to take the time to do it right. The second thing is that a lot of Plan Bay Area is based on what I would call untested or unchallenged precepts. For example, the concept that high-density housing along an urban corridor will reduce greenhouse gases, that's just taken as a given. There's many similar precepts in this plan which are really unchallenged. And I'd like to see a really thoughtful challenge come forward. For example, that one, that high-density housing along transportation corridors will reduce greenhouse gases. It's obvious to all of us who live here that if the transportation corridors become more clogged, it will have the exact opposite effect of not decreasing greenhouse gases, but increasing them. And if you really want to decrease greenhouse gases, the simplest possible way to do it is to increase public transit. I have a lot of sympathy for the people who stood up here and said they can't get around, they can't get to the canal, they can't get to their jobs. Every time we turn around, they're cutting, public transit. So if you guys really care about decreasing greenhouse gases, then you should lobby very hard for increased public transit. That benefits everyone. And the other thing I'd like to say is that when Plan Bay Area came out, there was an article in the Wall Street Journal. It was very telling that what the Wall Street Journal said, the headline of the article was, California declares war on the suburbs. There's a lot of people here who believe that this is a centrally planned, not particularly well thought out way for people who have an entirely different set of benefits to be gained from it, imposed on smaller communities that really don't have the power to resist. And I think that if you really take the time to get this right, you'll find that there's a way to empower the small communities to build more housing in a way that won't increase greenhouse gases. Thank you.
Followed by Guy Meyer, Richard Hall, and Kay Tokert.
Susan Kirsch, a 34-year resident of Mill Valley. So I'd like to underscore too the theme that many speakers are bringing forward to say, to recommend that you give this process more time, and that it seems to call for at least a 6-month extension to be able to give people a chance to be informed and educated and thoughtful about this process. A part of what seems to be just a terrible inadequacy of what's gone on so far is the fact that there's been such a lack of transparency. And with appreciation for the 3 of you who will be voting on the ABAG MTC Executive Committee, I would guess that there are many of us in this room who really have no direct representation in this vote, that none of the 3 of you are my representative, by the fact that the Board of Supervisors got to choose 2 of you to represent them, and the mayors and city councils got to select you to represent mayors and city council members. It leaves a whole room full of us without a representative who we have voted for, who we can count on to speak on our behalf. So if there is a 6-month extension, I would hope that there would also be a way of further transparency and engagement, so that even if we don't have direct representation, that we could count on our supervisors or our local civic leaders to bring us education and engage us in a process of looking at what the choices are. Then I've got one other comment that I want to make, and that's in regard to the point of this plan around equitable access. And with great appreciation for all of us who wish our children could live in this county where we live, and the people who want affordable housing. But I want to point out, because I've read much of this plan, that this plan on the point of equitable access actually diminishes affordable housing. If you look on page 108 of the plan, you will read that instead of achieving equitable access, ABAG MTC's own conclusion says the plan moves in the wrong direction. So whereas HUD already determines that if you're spending more than 30% of your income on housing, you will be cost burdened regarding healthcare and food and transportation, this plan, by their own account, will require low and lower middle income residents to use 69% of their household income on housing and transportation. So I encourage you to extend the deadline that we work on this to get it right, to really have something of social equity in a plan that we all have to live with for the next 25 years.
Guy Meyer will be followed by Richard Hall, Kay Torkred, and Sue Bidle.
Hello, I'm Guy Meyer. I'm a resident of San Rafael and of Marin County for the last 38 years. Sustainability starts in the present with existing communities. And I believe that sustainability is completely entwined with the essence of what democracy is. If you want to build a sustainable civilization from the ground, the people have to be completely connected to the process of decision making that affects them. Increasing density, increasing population gradually, and I'm old enough to see it, maybe some young people haven't seen it, lowers the quality of life. That's my opinion. California, I believe that California needs a moratorium on all large or grand scale developments. It's been the heritage, shall we say, of California since the 1960s. There's a book in the Civic Center, I saw it 25 years ago, called The Destruction of the Golden State, written in 1967. The story has never ended. The story has never been challenged. And it seems to me that this process is giving a green light. It's giving a jetpack to the developers who are just hungry for, well, it's a fantastic opportunity for them and not for the people of California and the Bay Area. Fresh water, I can't believe how we take this for granted in California. I was trying to look for the details of something on the computer to see. I know that in 2006 a grand jury was convened in Marin County and wrote a report about our fragile water supply. Back in the 1980s, we coaxed the population to start getting water from the Russian River, ending our own self-reliance on our own water. That Russian River water may be taken away from us any given time with more drought. How do you take care of your existing community? What is your oath of office to your residents that have voted you in, as opposed to the people who may want to move here someday? And God bless them wherever they are. But the problem of taking care of the people where they are might help them where they are too. Locating people near highways is directly putting people in harm's way, exhaust particulate matter. There's been studies, major studies, that have shown that Marin County has pretty favorable weather conditions. May not be as bad as Fremont or other places, but still, it's not good. California needs a new vision of local independence and strength gained from local manufacturing, things that we've completely lost. Anyways,
Mr. Meyer, your
dependence on the building industry is not sustainable.
Thank you very much. Please submit comments. Richard Hall, followed by Kay Torkred, Sue Vitel, and Councilman George Barish.
And after that, we will go to the 2-minute period for speakers. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Richard Hall. I live in San Rafael. Supervisors Kinsey, Rice, and Claire Eklund. Thank you for having this time for us to speak. Plan Bay Area is supposed to reduce CO2 emissions. It's one of its primary goals. However, the plan is questionable and based on assumptions that are flawed, and it's actually more likely to increase CO2 emissions. It's also likely to contribute to 101 gridlock, serves a subsidization program for transit and housing that will needlessly tax Marin residents. Plan Bay Area claims it will reduce the region's greenhouse gas emissions by 15%. But the plan itself admits that if nothing is done, emissions would actually fall by 12%. So even if its assumptions are valid, the plan only makes a difference of 3%. But the plan is built on 3 highly questionable assumptions: that high-density housing will lead people to drive less and take transit more, that transit emits less CO2 per passenger mile than driving, that reducing greenhouse gas emissions is worthwhile no matter what the cost. The core premise is that high-density housing will increase ridership. But Portland has tried this. For 25 years, Portland has had one of the most aggressive, transit-oriented development policies, and it has failed. The Cascade Policy Institute up there has found that people living in 4- and 5-story transit-oriented developments built in that city are no more likely to take transit to work than people living elsewhere. In downtown Portland, during the most intense investment in MAX, their light rail, the share of weekday commuting on transit actually fell from 40% of trips to 36% during the past decade, according to the city's own auditor. So we're repeating past historic mistakes here. Why are we repeating them? There's no need for this. You should just look at Portland's failure. Plan Bay Area rewards the construction of high-density housing units near transit, such as right here in North San Rafael's Civic Center Smart Station. This is going to inundate roads and intersections that are already at capacity with added traffic, and yet have no measurable increase in transit ridership. It did not work. They do not take more transit. The second premise, that transit emits less CO2 per passenger mile than driving, also fails to stand up to scrutiny. Trains in Austin, San Diego, and other cities are like our SMART train. SMART has not released its CO2 figures publicly. So if we base it on those similar trains, the average per passenger mile of a train, like the SMART train, will be no better than the average car in 2025. Golden Gate Ferry is 3 times worse than cars, and Marin and Sonoma County buses are as bad or worse than cars. So this is built on bad premises, bad logic.
Thank you very much for your comments and please.
Followed by Sue Vitale, Councilman George Barrich, and Martha Vega.
I'm Kay Tokarud. I'm a property owner in several counties in the Bay Area. My group is the Post Sustainability Institute, and we actually intend to make a legal challenge to this plan on several grounds that I'll go through quickly. Plan Bay Area violates the 5th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution by taking property rights without just compensation. Plan Bay Area violates the 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, the Equal Protection Clause. Plan Bay Area violates Article 1, Section 7A of the California Constitution, which provides that a person may not be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law or denied equal protection of the laws. Plan Bay Area violates Article 1, Section 1 of the California Constitution, which provides that all people are by nature free and independent and have inalienable rights. Among these are enjoying and defending life and liberty, acquiring, possessing, and protecting property, and pursuing and obtaining safety, happiness, and privacy. Plan Bay Area violates voter-approved urban growth boundary ordinances. Because the priority development areas are within the urban growth boundaries but are much smaller restricted areas, they are in violation of ordinances that clearly state that development must be encouraged out to the limits of city services. Urban growth boundaries. These ordinances are found throughout the Bay Area and cannot be changed without voter approval. Plan Bay Area will result in lower property tax revenues in areas outside of the priority development areas. This will result in loss of services, roads, police, schools, maintenance of government. This plan self-describes as being a bold plan, an aggressive plan. And I looked up the definition of aggressive, characterized by or tending toward unprovoked offenses, attacks, invasions, or the like. Inclined to behave in an actively hostile fashion. Pursuing one's aims and interests forcefully, sometimes unduly so. So you've called it that yourself. And what you're doing is basically in the rural areas, you're taking conservation easements on all land without paying a penny for it. Land trusts pay millions of dollars to buy conservation easements at this time. This plan is asking every county to deny all property development outside of the urban growth areas without paying anything for that. So you're really stealing here. And this also, I just, want to reiterate that this plan does follow exactly the UN Agenda 21 model. Thank you.
Sue Beidel. I'm a resident of San Rafael, and I'm representing the League of Women Voters of Marin County tonight. We have written and had approved by our board a rather long statement, and I'm going to highlight some of the items in that statement. Our response to Plan Bay Area. The importance of regional outlook and long-range planning. Since the 1960s, the League of Women Voters has supported the idea of communities around the Bay Area examining together the need for clean air and water, environmental and agricultural protection, transit infrastructure, and a range of housing appropriate for all segments of the community. All of these issues impact everyone in the Bay Area. There are no boundaries, so a plan to approach these issues in a collective way is imperative. Plan Bay Area represents an opportunity to fulfill that need. Plan Bay Area does not introduce concepts that are foreign to planning in Marin County. In 2007, the Marin County General Plan focused on sustainability, including many of the same issues and future visioning as Plan Bay Area. It needs to be remembered that Plan Bay Area provides a general context for local planning. Land use planning, including housing and commercial uses, continues to be the responsibility of each jurisdiction. The plan does not take away that mandated local decision-making, but places it in the context of the future of our interconnected counties. And then a few more points. Climate change response requires transportation and land use discussions. All possible tools to address climate change need to be part of planning. Open space and agricultural preservation. The League supports the inclusion of careful preservation of open space and agriculture around the Bay Area. Equity access is a priority for any future visioning. There's a high need for rental housing. When planning for housing in Marin County, the highest priority is for a range of rental housing. Our less than 1% vacancy rate promotes very high rents and a hardship on many families and seniors. We have within our midst outstanding examples of attractive, affordable, infill rental housing complexes built by nonprofits as permanently affordable and accessible to transit. And then we have some areas that we think need improvement.
Sue, your 3 minutes are up.
Okay,
I suggest you send that in writing, and thank you very much for your comments. Councilman George Barrich, and then starting the 2-minute limit is Martha Vega, Barbara Patton, and then Michelle Belford.
Good evening. By requiring the speakers to use a speaker card, you violated the Brown Act, and you all know that. You well know that. I oppose this plan, this One Bay Area plan. I went to school in Marin. I studied government in San Francisco. I studied the law. I have property interests in Marin. I'm a former city council member in the city of Cotati. This plan is blatantly unsustainable. $300 billion over 25 years is obscene. The propensity for fraud, waste, and abuse is almost unimaginable. When I was on the Cotati City Council, I railed against this plan, a $73 million downtown specific plan based on the strings attached and the grant money coming from the MTC and ABAG and the state and federal government. Because Cotati didn't have a dime for any of it. To put in their stack and pack housing downtown, single lane roundabouts, and turning our beautiful semi-rural community into a little thriving metropolis. This is government on steroids. It's based on junk science. It has questionable population projections. I moved to the North Bay to avoid the congestion and the lack of parking that is in this plan. Now you want to impose all this on us again. Under this plan, it will turn all these little rural communities into little mini metropolises on valuable land that is not meant for this type of development. Furthermore, on your claim of preparation for this draft plan, you say that you reached out to people of color. That's not only blatantly racist, but it also violated my civil rights by not reaching out to all of us equally. And there may be a claim in the lawsuit coming forward on civil rights grounds as well. Now, in bad weather, cold weather, wet weather, I am not going to get on my bicycle, drive to work. I'm not going to go to pick up my dry cleaning. I'm not going to take my dog to the vet on my bicycle in bad weather. Okay? I am not going to take a day off for work either. Thank you.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Marta Vega y yo represento a las familias de San Rafael de Bajo Ingreso.
Hi, this is Martha Vega, and she represents the families in San Rafael of low income, and I'll be translating.
Primero yo quiero decirles que creo en el plan de affordable housing.
First of all, I'd like to say that I believe in affordable housing.
También en la coactividad de todas las personas merecen vivir en un ambiente sano.
She also believes in the equality of all people and that we all deserve to live in an environment of safety and health.
En donde yo vivo hay personas que tienen que vivir aglomeradas de 3 familias en un apartamento que cuesta $1,600 con 2 recámaras y una pequeña cocina donde solo cabe una persona.
Where I live, there are families that live in houses and it's completely crowded, where they have kitchens where maybe only 2 people can fit in, and there's many people living in one room because these apartments cost about $1,600 to $1,800 and the deposit is double this.
Eso se paga con el salario de 3 trabajos.
This is paid with the salary of about 3 jobs.
El condado de Marin un día no va a ser lo que fue hace 20 años.
Marin County one day will not be what it was 20 years ago.
Y si no lo creen, nada más pregúntense por qué hay tiendas que venden productos de $1.
If you don't believe it, you should ask yourself why there are stores that sell products for about $1.
La pobreza está incrementando porque no hay salarios justos, la transportación está aumentando, los costos de vivienda son muy altos y la educación se está limitando. Los salarios son muy altos, muy bajos y el costo de vivienda es muy alto y la educación es muy costosa.
Salaries are not large enough, the cost of transportation is very high.
Thank you very much. Barbara Patton, Michelle Bell.
My name is Barbara Patton, and I live in Tiburon. I'm a native Californian, and I have lived in Marin County almost 45 years. I have 2 comments to make, and each comment will be followed by a rhetorical question for you. Plan Bay Area is very similar to a concept used by Paolo Solari, an Italian communist, please, who was a planner and architect working in Arizona in the 1960s. I happen to have worked and volunteered for him for a summer when I was in college. I went into that program not knowing what his theory or the concept was that he was promoting. Now I do. I learned very quickly what he was up to. He was a control freak who did not listen to anyone. So even though you are having these public meetings to listen to people. My rhetorical question is, are you really listening, or have you already made up your minds about Plan Bay Area? My next comment is, well, actually, it's going to start with a question and then end with a rhetorical question. Why is the United Nations behind this plan? I'd like to see an answer to that question published in your papers and published in the IJ, in the Chronicle, in every local newspaper. A clear, concise, to-the-point answer to that question. We are a self-governing republic, and we have not been given the opportunity to even think or vote on this topic.
Barbara,
It is
thank
shocking.
you very much for your comments. You have 3 minutes.
You are welcome.
Elizabeth Manning, and then Alexandra D. Swan.
I have a question for you. Why is it that Susan Adams worked on this for 9.5 years and we just found out about it 4 years ago? Also, a lot of you are aware, I'm sure, that One Bay Area, Plan Bay Area, MTC, ICLEI, MTC, and SMART are all the same company. Their base is in Oakland. What bothers me is that you're making decisions for us. We're supposed to be the voters. We're supposed to have a say in this, and you have infiltrated every city council in California. I've been to most of them in Sonoma and all of them in Marin, and I've seen the same people on your city councils. It really, really bothers me that my children may have this to look forward to, or not to look forward to, that they may never be able to have a home because you want to get rid of suburbia, move us into the center of town, put us on public transportation, and like George Barrett said, and others, I don't feel like going to the grocery store on a train. I don't want to share a bike. And, I work very hard along with my husband to provide for our kids, to send them to college, to purchase our home. And I'm sitting here thinking, why are we fixing the backyard? You're just going to take it away. Well, you know what? You may think this is over, but I'm telling you, it's not. Also, I think it would be time for you to fess up and let these people know that this has been in the works since 1932. I've seen the blueprint along with Debbie Bacigalupi and Heather Goss. And it's amazing to me that you could be a party to anything that wants to reduce the population of the world to 1 billion. That means some of these people that are concerned about transportation, they're not going to be here anyway for it. The seniors, which you are.
Yeah. Thank you, Michelle, for your comments.
Give us 6 more months.
Alan Scott, followed by Elizabeth Manning, Alexandra D. Swan, and then Tony Schroyer.
Good evening, I'm Alan Scott from San Rafael. I'm here to tell you that Plan Bay Area will not work for a realistic long-term future. When every home will have solar panels and a wind turbine on its roof. Thus every single family home will be generating more electricity than consumed. Charging the electric car every night. And that's right, everyone will have an electric car. Home insulation will become irrelevant. Solar panels and a wind turbine on the roof of a multi-family apartment building can never be enough to meet the needs of the multi-families below, and will not be energy cost efficient. But single-family houses will be net energy producers. Also in the future, there will be local waste recycling and water capture and reuse. Not necessarily in the too distant future. Water will be stored and reprocessed for reuse and more. Human waste even will be locally processed and put back into the ground. Remember, with excess renewable energy, all things are possible. This will happen. This is yet another reason why the single-family detached home with a garden is the way of the future for carbon sequestration and water recycling and storage, as well as energy efficiency. Bottom line, the planned Bay Area will relatively increase greenhouse gases, not decrease it, totally negating the whole purpose of planned Bay Area. Thank you.
Elizabeth Manning, followed by Alexandra Deswong, Tony Schroyer, and Paul Goshuroff.
Elizabeth Manning, Marin resident. After having attended Plan Bay Area meetings in all the 9 counties, I know the majority of the public comments oppose it. It's not just that our small towns will lose their individual character to the bland uniformity of regionalism. This plan will eventually deny new homeowners the choice of traditional housing, gradually forcing most residents into high-density living conditions in the interest of social justice, or what you call social justice. The historical problem with the social welfare is that it slowly cripples the spirit as it extinguishes the joys of accomplishment in an individual's pursuit of happiness. Before the March 20th Citizen Marin meeting commenced, it was used by political bureaucrats to add their tired, dirty tricks before it outside was out. I'm a UC Berkeley trained social worker who has worked in the Bay Area for 40 years. I mention this to underscore my admonition to Mr. Kinsey and others who attempt to use the cheap tactics of racism and apartheid to distract or intimidate the less informed. It's likely that because of people like Mr. Kinsey, that the Bay Area was chosen to lead this invasive attack on our property rights and small town autonomy. Central planning does not work, whether it's the Soviets or Johnson's so-called Great Society, which ushered in the pathetic cycle of generational welfare. Given sufficient study, the end goals are obvious. This plan, or whatever it's called nationwide, over time robs the family of the American dream. Single home privacy will come to be considered a selfish luxury, except for those bureaucrats who have arrived and will be able to live on the ridgetops with the views of the water.
Elizabeth, thank you very much for your comments.
I'm not finished.
I'm sorry, your 2 minutes are up.
Let her finish, please.
Alexandra Deswong, please come on. Tony
Tony
Schroyer.
To not look at
Paul
him.
Gouchera.
You don't know that.
And then Frank Ager. Is Alexandra here?
Yes, I would just like to say that I'm deeply disturbed about the actual autocratic nature of these proceedings. I'm confused. Where is the statute that gives you your authority and legitimacy as a political governing body that makes decisions for our future, for my future, that have irrevocable long-term repercussions? I'm very confused as to why this entire procedure is so totally undemocratic. I have yet to see ABAG on a ballot. I have yet to see Plan Bay Area on a ballot. And the way that this whole project is submitted in package form is fundamentally undemocratic. And I am horrified.
Paul Gouchera, Frank Egger, and then Larry Bragman.
Good evening, I'm Tony Schroyer. I'm a Novato resident and Marin County native. Currently, the draft environmental impact report has failed with regard to public safety and is developer-oriented and not public safety-oriented. Public safety is essential to everyone.
Developers advocate for best practices of management of multifamily dwellings of 40 units or more. Why? Because it is more viable or profitable for them. Profitability cannot have dominion over public safety. Adequate public safety should include all units, not just those of 40 units or more. Because of budget cuts, many cities and counties do not have a full complement of law enforcement personnel. This is true of staff of code enforcement officials as well. So my question is, are we going to build even more units and stretch our current law enforcement personnel even further? The developers are being allowed to compromise public safety whenever they decide to build. For example, the California Tax Allocation Committee, the CTAC, allows nonprofit developers to have a 55-year tax exemption and are not held accountable for keeping their complexes free of crime. What we have seen in Novato, CTAC will request security cameras, security gates, and part-time security guards, and then the developer is deemed in compliance regardless. Clearly, this is not enough. There are two things we must accomplish. First, we must have best practices for all affordable and multifamily units, regardless where they're clustered in 40 units or more. Two, there must be public safety impact fees imposed to developers to compensate for the stress placed upon the current infrastructure by high-density housing. Let's be people-oriented, not developer-oriented. Thank you.
Followed by Frank Hager, Larry Bragman, and Clayton Smith. Welcome, Paul.
Hi, I'm Paul Gashora. Thanks for getting the pronunciation right. I've been a resident of San Rafael since 1992 and a homeowner. I've been a resident of Marin since 1987, and my wife's been a business owner in San Rafael since 1993. I'm an engineer and somewhat of an environmentalist, and so some of the things that have been talked about tonight go to economics, and in case you've missed it, there are 3 rules of economics. If you subsidize something, you get more of it. If you tax something, you get less of it. And the third, which is becoming obvious now in certain efforts in the United States, if you make something illegal, you raise its price, but you don't get rid of it. So what I want to say is, in engineering, when you end up with a result that is so clearly wrong, it's time to throw it out and start all over again. And I think that some of the proposals that are being thrown about really are clearly wrong for Marin. I believe that Marin needs to withdraw from ABAG, and that all of us taxpayers need to remove from public office at the next election cycle any elected official that doesn't support that position.
Clayton Smith, and then Carrie Stover. Frank Hager, go ahead, thank you.
Supervisors and Mayor Frank Hager, President of Ross Valley Sanitary District, speaking for myself only, not the board. I also serve as Central Marin Sanitation Agency Commissioner. We treat the sewage from 2/3 of San Rafael, all of the Ross Valley, and the Corte Madera, roughly 100,000 residents. To my knowledge, no one from ABAG or MTC or One Bay Area Plan has ever contacted the Ross Valley Sanitary District regarding our system's current status and future capacity. One Bay Area Plan and its EIR are fairly flawed. The Bay Area Regional Water Quality Control Board meets Wednesday, May 8th in Oakland to issue the final cease and desist order against our Ross Valley agency. We have major structural capacity issues. The estimated cost to repair and add capacity is $180 million. The One Bay Area Plan calls for 1,446 new residential units in the Ross Valley and 2,246 new jobs. Sewers, collection, treatment capacity issues must be addressed. For the record, Fairfax is one of the most affordable communities in Marin. How did that come about? Fairfax has height limits. Fairfax protects existing rental units. I authored the ordinance in the 70s during a previous term as mayor. We made findings and passed what I call the Affordable Housing Act. No apartment or multiple residential housing unit in Marin in Fairfax may be converted to a condominium. I was personally sued by a developer for loss of his income because Fairfax prohibited his condo conversion application for 127 apartments that he wanted to set up and sell individually. Case law was established as a result of the developer's lawsuit. Fairfax has never lost a residential unit to a condo conversion. Unless employees in our communities can earn a living wage, affordable housing will be out of reach for them. During the term as mayor, I authored Fairfax's living wage law, and to this day, Fairfax has the highest living wage ordinance in not only California, but the nation. Protect existing affordable housing, stop condominium conversion, mandate living wage laws in all our cities.
Thank you, Frank. Your 2 minutes are up. I'm sorry.
Larry Bradman, followed by Clayton Smith, Carrie Stovner, and Ray Day.
Good evening, supervisors and council member. I'm Larry Bragman, a member of the Fairfax Town Council. I'm just speaking for myself. The Town Council of Fairfax has not had an opportunity to take up the Bay Area plan and consider it and make comments as a deliberative body. So I certainly echo everyone's request that the deadline for comments be extended. I would say a minimum of 120 days, maybe 6 months, given the scope of the project. Fairfax has been trying to build low income and elderly housing for 4 years since I've been on the council, and there's no federal support for that type of development. It all depends on tax breaks for developers, and it's a down market, very difficult to do. Maybe we need to rethink how we're approaching housing, and maybe we need to be subsidizing people's housing directly instead of giving tax breaks to developers in order to encourage it. So please slow this thing down. You're going to have a lot more support. If you do, it'll actually reflect what the people want, and maybe we'll get to a consensus where people will understand it and accept it, even if it's grudgingly. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Clayton Smith, followed by Carrie Stovner, Ray Day, and James Bitter.
Yes, my name is Clayton Smith, and I live in Mill Valley. I would like to say that when I look at this country right now, I think there's widespread agreement with this. The great malaise that is gripping this country has one word that really can typify it, and that is cronyism. And this issue of cronyism is very much exampled by Plan Bay Area, which is basically cronyism on steroids, to put it bluntly. And it reminds me, quite frankly, of that meeting in The Godfather where the one guy complains about Don Corleone. He has all those politicians in his pocket. And I'd have to say that I would say that the great finance interests in industry and the development industry and the people up in South, I'd say they have a government in their pocket. And that's why this government that is in their pocket is a government that no longer listens to the people who actually do the work of this society, pay its bills, mind their own business, and obey its laws and live in peace and harmony with one another. And I would say that this Plan Bay Area is an example of a government that is actually attacking civil society as it exists currently. It is like the war in Afghanistan, in Iraq, and the other places that this government has created foment and civil crisis and strife. You have come here to do the same thing to our community. And I would say that if fascism has come to America, it is coming in this guise of social equity and justice, when really we know it's just a vehicle to create power and to line people's pockets. Thank you.
Ray Day, James Bitter, and then Sue Heston.
Carrie Stabner, Mill Valley, and I also want to identify myself as one of the members of Marin Water Coalition that was here, I think, 4 years ago, talking about the proposed desalination plant. And I think before we go further with the One Bay Area plan, there has to be an identification of where the water is going to come from for this massive new development. because we were told by MMWD that we were in crisis, that there was no more water, that we would run out of water unless we built a $400 million desal plant. That, contrary to the assertions that you want a greenhouse gas emissions cut down, a desalination plant uses 9 times more energy than water obtained through conventional sources. And MMWD right now is the largest energy user in Marin. This is not only that, but for our desalination plant that is proposed for Marin, we would take the water from our toxic hotspot, San Francisco Bay, that is filled with fire retardants, arsenic, pesticides, herbicides, and I do not think that these are all going to be removed via reverse osmosis. There are no safe levels for carcinogens, and that is what you would be asking us to replace our rainwater with from our 7 reservoirs. We can be self-sustaining, sustainable watershed here in Marin, but not if we add the equivalent of an entire new town.
Carrie, thank you very much for your comments.
Ray Day, followed by James Bitter, Sue Hester, and Deborah from Sonoma County.
Hi, I'm Ray Day. I'm a resident of Marinwood. Been in Marin County for over 35 years. Just to restate this for everyone in Marinwood, we are not against reasonable, affordable housing. We just don't need 100% affordable housing, and that's the problem. I'm in favor of no plan for the One Bay area. Reason being that with the densities proposed, and especially in our area, it doesn't fit Marinwood and its open space surroundings. We have a beautiful community, and we're going to go ahead and fill it up with these several story units to go ahead and accommodate the 100% affordable housing. The people brought up water as one of the issues that is in this area. I'll tell you, being from Southern California at one time, 90% of the water is imported in Southern California. In San Diego, tried a program to recycle that water. Media got a hold of it and they called it toilet to tap. Okay, folks, that's what we're gonna have, toilet to tap, so get used to it. The public needs to vote on these plans. It shouldn't be left up to the discretion of public officials. They just don't have common sense to vote for what we need. Please extend the deadline for the comment on the EIR. Thank you very much.
Thank you. James Bitter, followed by Sue Hester, Deborah, and then Helen Lindquist.
James Bitter, Mill Valley. I want to avoid saying what I really think. Like having to tell Susan Adams that she's reading the EIR report, having trouble getting through it. That report wasn't meant for public consumption. It was meant for the benefit of the consultants, and they're numerous across this country, millions of taxpayer dollars. It was meant for their benefit. I want to avoid the sight of Steve Kinsey standing next to the sign, guy with the sign, apartheid in Marin. I'm a native of Marin. It was one of the most embarrassing things I have seen in a long time. Judy Arnold at the Board of Supervisors criticizing people. At the visioning meetings, people actually came from the East Bay. Can you imagine it? People from the East Bay. And they were a little bit disruptive. They were slightly about as unhappy as this crowd is about what you're doing. But let me remind Judy Arnold that ABAG and MTC are in the East Bay. They're in the same building. Steve Kinsey is as a commissioner, $11,000, I believe, they got sitting on that board. He's going to vote for this thing. The rest of the board is going to vote for this thing. The Board of Supervisors, running out of gas there. They appoint the planning commission. As we speak, they are working on 17 sites where we're gonna have 30 units per site. We have to do this. The board has appointed them. The board is, our board of supervisors is the plan. God help us.
Thank you very much, Mr. Baird. Sue Hester, Deborah from Sonoma County, Helen Lindquist, and then Bill Lindquist.
Hi, I'm Sue Hester. I'm from San Francisco. I couldn't come to the San Francisco meeting because I was at another hearing. I support regional housing needs allocation for San Francisco, and if anything, it needs to be increased. Part of the unknown problem to very many people is that we are losing middle class and low income housing by the tens of thousands in San Francisco because of upscaling to the, I was going to say .com, the techies that are coming into the city and other upscale people. The problem we have with the map is that San Francisco all along the Bay Side is totally filled, 100% filled. San Francisco grew by filling in the bay. And we have marshes, and we have dead boats that are sunk and the land is put on top of them that constitutes the San Francisco waterfront. At the same time, ABAG has this area as the area for growth of housing. I know this area. This area is not the only housing that can be built in this area, particularly South of Market, is high-end condos. We need affordable housing, and yet the plan calls for infill development on areas that will never take affordable housing. And sea level rise is an inevitable problem. Right now, there is sea level comes in, the sea comes in to the old marshes. We had deaths in La Prieta in the South of Market. Everyone knows about deaths in the marina. We had them in the South of Market. Where can I submit a map?
Thank you, Sue, for your
a
comments.
map I want to submit. I came from San Francisco. Damn it, I want to submit my map.
Sue, I'm sorry that your 2 minutes are up. Please submit your comments in writing. And we need Deborah from Sonoma County.
I want to submit my
Deborah, followed by Helen Lindquist, then Bill Lindquist, and then Michael Gravel.
Hi, my name is Deborah, and I'm with StopTheCrime.net. If all of you sitting in the audience want to know the real plan, go to StopTheCrime.net, read the Iron Mountain report. It came out of John F. Kennedy's administration. It will show you exactly what this fraudulent panel is doing to all of us right now. Also, under the source documents on Stop the Crime, you may want to take a look at the NASA document that was found. It talks about massive media disinformation. That is what we have. So I urge all of you, I have flyers, you can come and get them. I want to read a quote. This is from CIA Director William Casey in 1981. We'll know our disinformation campaign is complete when absolutely everything the American people believe is false. And that is the reality of our current time. I also want to say, let's stop calling ABAG and their bodies and agencies our government. They and you are not. You are posing as a legitimate government, and you are not. You do not serve us. You are not elected, but rather you serve the private corporations listed on Dun and Bradstreet. It is our duty to expose the reality that you are fraudulently receiving public funds and corporate immunity while you are actively promoting the harm of all of us. Even if you, and most of you, employees, are as much in the dark as the rest of us, you are responsible and ultimately culpable for the acts that you are doing to all of us. I also want to say that a grant is a contract between those that offer the contract and those that agree to that contract. Grants are corporate contracts, and we are not obligated to them. And you, because you've agreed to them, not us as regional panels, have signed some of these contracts. You have no authority over us. And you can move into the low-income housing yourself and live in a 5-minute lifestyle, because you've signed it. We haven't.
Thank you. Helen Lindquist, followed by Bill Lindquist, Michael Gravel, and Bob Chilvers. We will then be after 9 o'clock, but we're prepared to allow all the speaker cards that we've currently received to speak for at least 1 minute. Thank you.
Excuse me, sir. Why is it necessary to artificially shorten the meeting at the beginning with your show and tell and enforce a short time frame of 9 o'clock?
Excuse me, 7 o'clock
Is
to
it
9
not
o'clock
possible
was-
to extend the
7
meeting
o'clock to 9
enough
o'clock
to
was the
allow
public
the
hearing.
democratic process
Thank
to
you.
Where are you going?
What's up? Where's the party? Where are you going? We're going to end it right now, but we're going to continue.
Where's the party?
I'm going to give the opportunity for Ms. Lindquist and Mr. Lindquist. Thank you.
Take 2 minutes.
Want to make a couple of comments. In the old days, marshes were filled in, levees were built, and they thought this was the way to go for housing and for farming. Now we know the value of marshes and how they can protect the environment, how it's great for birds and incoming tides, high tides. So let's not build any of this multiple housing on marshy areas. The smart railroad's bad enough, it goes through a lot of it. The other point is that I'd like a true scientific check for ABAG and MTC to do for basing their whole raison d'etre on greenhouse gases. Greenhouse gas emissions are not a problem, they've gone down since we're using more natural gas. SB 375, which links this transport to a reduction in greenhouse gases, is false herring, and we shouldn't rely on that, just as we shouldn't stick with AB 32 by Schwarzenegger. If you know anything about carbon dioxide, we all breathe it out, as does cars, so if you want to help the climate, stop breathing.
Bill Lindquist, Michael Gravel, Bob Chilvers, and then Bill Carney.
My name is Bill Lindquist. I live in Tiburon. I've been in Marin for 17 years and I love the place. I've lived in several countries. I've lived in towns as small as 2,000 people and in cities as large as 8 million. And I can tell you, the larger the city, the larger the bureaucracy that's running it, the more inefficient it is and the more totalitarian it gets. To think that ABAG can come up with a plan as complex as it's come up with over an area like the Bay, as diverse as it is and as widespread as it is, and to think it might work is purely delusional. And I'm afraid the only way to fight delusion is in the courts, and I will support the lawsuit that was mentioned by the lady in yellow who talked earlier tonight. And in parallel with that, I would like to see on the next ballot 3 referenda. 1 to vote you guys out of office, who support ABAG, number 1. Number 2, to have Marin County withdraw from ABAG. And lastly, have ABAG eliminated itself.
Bob Chilvers, Bill Carney, and then Denise Beck.
Good evening, Board. My name is Mike Gravel. I'm a resident of Lucas Valley. I'm also a father, a coach, and an active member of the community. To be perfectly honest, I don't proclaim myself to represent the people of Lucas Valley, but I wanted to express that there's not a lot of people from Lucas Valley here due to all the extracurricular activity with the George Lucas thing. A lot of people were scared because they received death threats for speaking out, exercising their votes by using their voices. So I'm just going to stick to the issues that directly impact Lucas Valley and try to keep it brief. First of all, we've got a 2-lane road. We've heard a lot of comments on traffic congestion, CO2 emissions, etc. Grady Ranch is not a location for any type of development. Lucas Valley is as rural as it gets. Once you pop over Big Rock here in West Marin, and it just makes no sense to position this type of project out in that setting for a number of reasons. There's no stores out there, there's no medical offices out there, there's none of the services, public or otherwise, that the people that are gonna be living in those units are gonna need. You're isolating them, forcing them to rely on public transportation, which I don't know if that's part of the plan or not, I haven't reviewed that, but there's certainly not adequate transportation for the people in that corridor. The fire and public safety issues, I know you guys don't want to hear about it, but the school district, I think the projection was that there was 1.3 kids going into the school district from each of the units, 750 units. That gets 750 kids, maybe a little bit more than that, into the Dixie School District with not $1 going. You guys have to consider that.
Thank you.
This is the American dream.
Thank you. Bob Childers, Bill Carney, Dennis Beck, Denise Beck, and Elaine Reichert. And we'll go to 1 minute after that.
I'm Bob Childers. I've been a resident of Marin County for almost 40 years. The idea of high-density housing near transportation and jobs is not exactly new. 70 years ago, probably the largest employer in Marin County was the Marin Kaiser Shipyard in Sausalito. High-density housing within walking distance of those jobs was built in Marin City. Apparently, ABAG was so impressed by the success of that high-density housing development that they decided to pepper Marin County with a number of other Marin cities. Rather than call this Plan Bay Area, I think a better name for it would be the Marin City Multiplier Plan.
Thank you very much. Bill Carney, Denise Beck, Elaine Reichert, Sharon Rushton.
Good evening. I'm Bill Carney with Sustainable San Rafael. We're going to submit a letter on this, but a few preliminaries. We think this plan is a good start. It's a good start towards addressing the most pressing issue of our era, which is climate change. It also is a start towards addressing a perennial issue of providing more workforce housing in Marin and elsewhere in the Bay Area. It does this by also promoting a revitalization of our traditional Marin downtowns and village and town centers. If you want to see what transit-oriented development looks like, go to downtown San Rafael, go to downtown Mill Valley, go to downtown San Anselmo. We have the examples right here of what a compact and friendly and walkable and bikeable sort of development can be. We should build on those traditions, and we believe this plan is a start in that direction. We would encourage strengthening the plan in several ways. The climate initiatives that are included in it account for less than 1% of the spending under this plan, and yet they accomplish close to 40% of the reductions in carbon emissions. We would encourage those to be beefed up and put more money there where you're getting the most bang for the buck. In particular, the nexus with green building is an important nexus to make here. There's going to be development under this plan. There needs to be assurances that those buildings are zero emission buildings. Sea level rise clearly needs to be addressed. And finally, BCDC and the Air Quality District that are theoretically partners in this effort need to be brought on as senior partners so that things like sea level rise are in fact fully addressed. Thank you very much.
Denise Beck, followed by Elaine Reichert, Sharon Rushton, and Valerie Hood.
Okay, as this is going to be addressed to primarily Kinsey since I'm your constituent. As one of your constituents, I have to let you know that I've been extremely disappointed in your track record. okay?
Thank you.
This is like the, fifth time I've had to address you. You tend to go through the unpopular large-scale development projects or related projects without going through proper channels. You have total disregard for public opinion. 3 years ago, after Marin residents gathered 18,000 signatures, over a dozen endorsements from environmental groups, all the political parties, Senator Leto endorsed it, community leaders endorsed it, to put Measure T on the ballot. You were one of the main politicians, and your buddy Huffman, the father of desalination, that endorsed a spoiler Measure S, which would have fast-tracked the permitting process for an unnecessary, environmentally unfriendly, exceedingly expensive, multi-million-dollar desalination project. In February 2012, you tried to push through the San Quentin Development Designation Resolution, which would allow ABAG to label San Quentin as a priority development site and circumvent the environmental review. And then you've also recently wanted to push through a massive freeway project in Corte Madera without doing an EIR and botched data. You're using data from the marina to justify that we needed that big project. This is not San Francisco, this is Marin, okay? Now you're trying to push this One Bay plan through, another massive development plan, and I think it's outrageous. You're accusing us of being racist. If you really want equity, fund education, train and increase employment opportunities, increase the living wage, rather than waste public funds on these projects.
Denise, I'm sorry, your 2 minutes are up. Thank you.
Elaine will get 1 minute, and the other speakers will have 1 minute behind them as well. We still have about 30 cards left. Thank you.
My name is Elaine Reichert. I live in Santa Benicia, which is a multi-income, very affordable neighborhood. It is racially diverse. We have 2 large affordable housing unit complexes there, and I want to say every unit produces 2 to 3 cars or small trucks, which not only park in their front lots, but all over the neighborhood. The fantasy developments that assume people are going to use transit don't take into account the reality of how people live to get to grocery stores, to get their kids to schools. Unless there's like some kind of magic fund to subsidize transit, everybody's going to need a car for various life functions. At the same time, Novato, for example, is rapidly developing car-dependent retail theme parks. No wonder there's a push for subsidized housing that supports businesses that don't pay a living wage and don't provide health care benefits. But of course, we have community subsidized clinics for that.
Thank you, Elaine. Sharon Rushton, Valerie Hood, Sarah Azarod, and Carol Sheeran.
Good evening, I'm Sharon Rushton. I'm from the El Monte District in unincorporated Marin, and I'm representing Sustainable Tam El Monte as well as myself this evening. The Draft Plan Bay Area's Draft Environmental Impact Report demonstrates that implementation of Plan Bay Area would cause 39 significant, unavoidable, adverse environmental impacts, resulting in severe environmental harm and serious illness, injury, and loss of life. The severity, magnitude, and number of these impacts are astonishing. They include, but are not limited to, impacts from insufficient water supply, inundation from sea level rise, exposure to hazardous materials, inadequate wastewater treatment capacity, a net increase in sensitive receptors located in transit priority project corridors where there are high concentrations of cancer-causing toxic air contaminants and fine particulate matter emissions, as well as additional environmental impacts on habitat and sensitive.
Thank you, Sharon. You can submit your comments in writing. Thank you. Valerie Hood, Sarah Azarad, Carol Sheeran, and Peter Lapkus.
Hi, Valerie Hood, born here 61 years ago. This plan supports local control. My town Fairfax is at gridlock right now several times per day, yet we're slated for 280 new units, and how many more in 4 years? Because ABAG just keeps wanting more. It's like a monster. I support workforce housing, but oppose giveaways to developers who will make huge profits. We've been compared to the Oakland Hills in terms of fire danger, and yet you advocate increasing traffic density. Caltrans advocated for a 4-lane highway from 101 to the coast, and when we reach total gridlock, which we will, it will destroy yet another facet of small town living. There was a massive push towards geoengineering at the federal level to meet our water needs, and I think this plan will open the floodgates for local desal, which our towns can ill afford. We should not, as a community, accept the parameters offered here as any kind of solution to affordable workforce housing. I hope that all participants will think outside the box offered. And here, we desperately need affordable housing, and I see this pitting community members against each other, and that's a huge concern for me. I think those of us who oppose this need to start a website tonight, a petition to resist, and a pledge to fight this.
We're going to have Sarah Azarod, please, followed by Carol Sharon, Peter Lackett, and John Hart. Thank you.
Hello. I live in Lucas Valley, Marinwood. There's not a lot of us here tonight, and now I understand why. It's a subsection of District 1. It is a quiet and beautiful neighborhood. People from all over the Bay, as you all know, and on the panel, come here for this reason specifically. I'm sure we all agree. 600 of the 852 high-density housing units listed within the plan are slated for our district. That's 70% of the new housing units planned for Marin County. Most of them in our neighborhood, in Marinwood, Lucas Valley. It'll be a huge influx of people and students in our district without ongoing funding, a huge influx. The Dixie School District is funded from property taxes, and the new high-density housing is mostly exempt from paying property taxes, so the plan leaves it up to our neighborhood to support this increase. We have only 2,900 households. Okay, that's small. We are a small community.
Thank you, Sarah, for your comments.
Right,
if you could submit your comments.
I did, yes.
Thank you. Great. Carol Sharon, Peter Lackus, John Hart, and then Kevin Gladstone.
My name is Carol Sharon. I live in San Rafael. I've been in my house for 46 years. Some of you may have read my letter in today's IJ. I also emailed a copy to every town, city, county elected official to make sure they read it. The letter basically asks for all officials of every town, city, and county to band together and request a 6-month extension on the comment period en masse for us to have time to handle all of this. It was pointed out by Susan Adams that it was a 1,356-page document, which is much too much to read. Democracy is not giving a chance to work with this Plan Bay area. One speaker mentioned elections. When all of you are up for election, I'd like to give you a reminder that the democratic process for holding our elected officials accountable is a recall.
Peter Lackus,
Thank you,
followed
Peter.
by John Hart, Kevin Gladstone, and Dee Dearbaum.
Thank you, Peter Lacks, Fairfax, California. 1 minute, not enough time to comment. I have concerns in the environmental impact report about water supplies for the projected growth. I also have concerns about the location of many of these PDAs in areas that will be subject to rising sea level rise, which also is not adequately addressed in the environmental impact report. Fundamentally, according to ABAG's own handout, Chapter 5, Performance, I have questions whether this is the right way to go, because the rationale for this is to increase affordable housing, reduce greenhouse gases. ABAG's own numbers indicate that as a result of the plan, low-income people earning under $38,000 after this is implemented will be spending 74% of their income on housing and transportation versus 72% now. That's actually increasing the cost of housing and transportation. Does not seem very effective. Likewise, commute times are going to either remain the same or increase. It does not seem to be addressing affordable housing or transportation.
Thank you. John Hart, Kevin Gladstone, Dee Dearborn, and Ann Spade.
Hi, John Hart of Santa Benicia. Given the short time, I'm going to winnow comments down to one. There has been much distress expressed tonight about the fact that unelected regional agencies are charged with these regional planning chores. Perhaps everyone in this room, and I smile, could agree that a good step would give to the Association of Bay Area Governments a directly elected board. Otherwise, I have to say that I am generally favorably inclined to the thrust of this plan. I've always wanted to be a contrarian. This is my chance. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hart. Kevin Gladstone, Dee Dearborn, Ann Spade, and then Dennis Finney.
My name is Kevin Gladstone. I'm also a contrarian. My hat's off to the Association of Bay Area Governments and the One Bay Area Plan, being that when I was a census enumerator in the year 2000, we had a 10-page form. In the year 2010, it was a postcard. So there's this dearth of data available for planning for equity, affordable housing, regional housing needs allocations, housing elements. So it's a very noble effort. My hat's off to you. And I believe it's a good start. If we need more time, we always have 2020 to look forward to for the census to recover.
Thank you very much. Dee Dearborn, followed by Ann Spake, Dennis Finney, and Lou T.O. something from Santa Rosa. All right, so Dee Dearborn is not here. So Ann.
I think she left, yeah.
Okay, so Ann Spake.
Kat Ziegard is here.
She's going to get her chance. She's going to get her chance, Ann.
First of all, 1 minute is not enough to make comments, so mine will be in writing, my detailed comments. I've spent at least 50 hours trying to read in detail the EIR on this plan to understand whether it really takes into account the things that we needed to address for sustainability. And I find it to be completely deficient. Again and again, it states that the impacts are significant and unavoidable. I would suggest to you they are very avoidable. It consistently and repeatedly basically identifies and discounts the serious impacts that it states. One of the fundamental flaws in it is that it says it can only address the effects of the projects on the environment, but it cannot address the effects of the environment on the project, and I assume the project is people, involves people.
Thank you, Ann. We'll look forward to your comments. Dennis Finney, followed by Lou Torn from Santa Rosa, Grace Severson, and then Margaret Ziegard.
Good evening. I'm Dennis Finney from Lucas Valley, and like the other woman who was from Lucas Valley earlier, and I'm in favor of you guys postponing any decision you make for 6 months. Lucas Valley, as she mentioned, is slated for 70% of all of this housing we're talking about, that density. Yet in Lucas Valley and Marinwood, they're literally 4 or 5, maybe even up to 6 or 7 miles away from any of the transportation that the SMART train is going to provide. There's no bus transit to Grady Ranch. All of this smacks of political patronage and expediency on your parts. Whoever the benefactors are, clearly it's not in a voted position that this board is. And I applaud the fact that you guys are putting out these for public comment, but also, and the fact that your political contributions, Katie Price and Kenzie, are online, but they are from political PACs in Oakland and from contractors. And I challenge anyone to.
Thank you very much, Dennis. The next speaker is Lou Torre. I'm not sure in the last spelling from Santa Rosa. Grace Evertson, Margaret Ziegart, and then Jean Ricky is our last card.
Yeah, I'm Lou from Santa Rosa, and a couple months ago I went down to Dominican Republic, and Al Gore was there, and he did a book signing and a review of his book, The Future, and I think he misnamed it. It really should have been The Near Future, because in that book he says the middle class is going to be hollowed out. And I haven't heard any talk about middle class families here. I hear low income. We know the upper incomes that have single family homes, there won't be any more of those allowed to be built in the future. And you haven't talked about the zero incomes. What are you going to do with the people when your plan is in place and we really have fewer jobs with people with no income? The second point about Al Gore, his previous book was a science fiction docudrama. It was called The Inconsistent Truth. And in that he talks about how carbon dioxide is a pollutant and how it's going to ruin the world. Did you ever realize that carbon dioxide is what feeds the plants? And if you looked around and realized, why aren't our forests flourishing instead of declining?
Grace Severson, followed by Margot Ziegart, and then Jean Wright.
Hello, my name is Grace Severson. I've been living in Corte Madera for 40 years. And I want to say from the many comments made tonight, it appears there are endless black holes in the present Plan Bay area. I am asking you, Representative Kenzie, you represent me, to please initiate with other elected officials and with us the people to take the road less traveled, to embrace fully the precautionary principle, to slow down, have at least a 6 months open educational process so that all the residents who live in Marin can listen to what's going on. Too many do not know what's going on. I just found out about it myself. So we need full open democracy, public debate, and education. Education is critical. Do not move on this until you have at least 80% of the people educated, 100% of Marin. Precautionary principle.
Margaret Ziegart, followed by Jean Wright.
Sorry, on page 1.2-25, it says in the DEIR, PBAs are nominated by local jurisdictions to appropriate places to concentrate future growth. Existing neighborhoods by transit to provide a larger range and also to have a better, more friendly environment. Now, you people know that 250% of the new housing is going to be on floodplain. It's absurd. It doesn't meet equity, doesn't meet any standard at all. I hope that you will, I appreciate all you do for us in the county. I really do. But this is a mistake and you can correct it. I wonder if you can get gratis the money that you've already accepted for 2 transportation projects, because that seems to be tying down your good judgment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Margaret. Our last speaker tonight is Jean Ricky. Is Jean here? Thank you. You have 1 minute. Thank you.
Hi, Jean Ricky, Larkspur, 31 years Marin, 41 years Bay Area. First, I think you've heard over and over again tonight, government by the people. Secondly, I so appreciate everything you do. There are many practical wants and needs, but you have been elected to be Marin County supervisors and elected officials. We have a treasure here that has been lost throughout the Bay Area by high density, by urbanization. We are a rural suburban area with a treasure that once you take it away, we will never have again. Please be our Marin County officials.
Closing comments, Supervisor Kinsey will go first.
Very briefly, just thank you for those of you who stuck around. The comments have been noted both by the official scribe as well as by each of us as individual representatives. The clear concerns that have been raised tonight have been heard. We will continue to have public conversation on May 9th and May 30th in Marin County, as well as conversations that will occur at our Transportation Authority on May 13th. So there will be additional opportunities for folks who are interested in having this conversation continue or to continue to participate with your elected representatives. Marin County is the slowest growing county. We will continue to be the slowest growing county. That is an important part of our culture, our outlook, and I think that in this plan, although there are many things that have been brought up this evening, I do need to point out that as the Bay Area is growing, that we have been assigned less than 1% of the future growth. The most important thing that I've heard this evening that we will just have to see where we can go has to do with providing more opportunity, more time. I'm not certain there are significant consequences to providing more time as it relates to both state laws as well as our financial opportunities with federal funds. But I do understand folks have had a real concern about the pace at which this has moved. I will say too, however, that this process began several years ago. Each of the cities and towns have taken up these issues. People were concerned about that. They have taken up these issues. They've made comments through the Transportation Authority as well as through their city councils and town councils. And so I think that there is, in fact, a significant amount of your representatives who have been participating in the process. Thank you again.
Supervisor Rice would like to make some closing comments, and then I will make the last.
Just very quickly, thank you for all of you who stuck through here and shared your comments. Lots of concerns, some of them conflicting concerns, a lot of them very valid concerns. We are listening carefully, and I think that you need to continue to provide us with what you're thinking, what your concerns are. As Supervisor Kinsey said, we're going to have another opportunity on May 9th, a forum hosted by Dominican to discuss this, and then again on May 30th. So we're trying to make ourselves available and provide the opportunities for people to learn and get educated and provide their feedback. And as with any decision that gets made at any level of government, never is 100% of the people happy with the decision, but we try to hear all things and then we have to apply our judgment. That's the role we play. So thanks for coming.
Thank you all very, very much for coming and participating in this whole process. You know, I grew up in Marin. I went to Dante Mateo, Vallecito, and Terralunda High. I'm lucky to be able to stay in Marin County. And all of us want to maintain the quality of our communities and the small town character. And really encourage you to continue to stay involved. As the representative for the 11 cities in Marin County, I have encouraged all the city councils and town councils to place this Plan Bay Area and draft EIR on their agendas so that their public, the people who live in that community, can comment on that. And I'd encourage you, if they have not already done so, please encourage them to do that. Also, as the representative, I have set up a meeting with all the ABAG delegates for each of the cities in Marin County after the close of the public comment period, so we can start talking about how should I represent Marin cities in the votes that will be coming up in June and July. Lastly, I wanted to remind you all, please submit your comments by May 16th, 4 p.m. Thank you again very much for coming, and good night.